And we're live. Welcome to yet another edition of PCS Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce. I'm the Director of Community Outreach here at PCS Grades. Boom. We are so excited about this show because today I have with me Lizanne Lightfoot, our PCS Grades content editor, the seasoned spouse, and oh, by the way, author of recently launched Open When, Letters of Encouragement for Military Spouses. And we're going to dive down that rabbit hole. I cannot wait to go down that rabbit hole with you, Lizanne, especially since my own mill kid and my own Mill Kid 2.0 are going through deployment themselves. And this book was like literally written for peeps like them. And you know what? Not going to lie, probably peeps like me too. But before we get over to Lizanne, I'm going to go through those housekeeping items as we do every week. Ready, set, here we go. All right, people, we've got the answers. And if we don't know those answers, guess what? We know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, we're going to take your questions for action and get back to you with an answer. Speaking of questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, shout outs, go ahead and drop those in the comment section below because today we're going to be giving away a few copies of Lizanne's brand new book. So you're like hitting the ground. You're one of those trendsetters. You're going to be that early adopter, if you will. So again, questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, shout outs, y'all. LOL smiley faces are totally encouraged, but unfortunately don't count as an entry to win. So go ahead and drop those in the comments for a chance to win. The more you engage, the more chance you have to win Lizanne's awesome book. Next up, we bring the experts to you. Experts like U.S. Transportation Command, experts like the International Association of Movers, experts like military spouse employment advocates and military education experts. We bring them to you because they're the source. But sometimes you're going to have a question or comment or an issue that is specific to you and your military family. And in instances like those, your two forever and always resources will be, number one, your local chain of command. Number two, your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who could take your issues and further them for action. Of course, you always have PCS grades at the helm. We've got area guides. We've got blog articles, thanks to Lizanne and several other military spouses, because they are written by mil spouses and military families for military spouses and military families. You can go on there and look at your BAH, whether you're researching your move or just looking ahead, or maybe you're just needing to hit the ground running on some, PCSing across the country with your kids. Pretty much everything that we have on PCS grades is going to help you with your PCS. So it's definitely a fantastic resource. PCSgrades.com, y'all. But don't go yet because we got a fantastic show. And then last, but certainly not least, and of course I am modifying this all the time. We got to keep doing our part, people. We got to keep doing our part to flatten that curve. We've got to flatten that curve. This Delta variant is crazy. Whether that's wearing your mask, social distancing, or following the restrictions and protocol in the area that you live in, be vigilant. Be vigilant because when we flatten that curve, we're going to flatten Murphy with it. Do you hear us, Murphy? We are coming for you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our girl, Lizanne, to tell us a little bit about herself. Lizanne?
Hey, thanks for having me on today. On this side of the webinar, I'm usually in the background and listening in on everything that you have to share. So it's definitely an honor. I am the PCS Grades content editor. So all of those area guides, our blogs, the great resources that we offer, I'm so proud to have a hand in all of that. And I'm also the author of the brand new book, Open When, Letters of Encouragement for Military Spouses, which we are going to be talking about today. But before all of that, I'm a military spouse, obviously. I've been married to my service member for 14 years now, but we have been together for 21 years, which includes all 2 decades of his military service. We have 5 kids. We have been through 6 PCS moves and 7 deployments. So I've been writing as the seasoned spouse on my blog for about 5 years now. Started as a blog and a freelance writer for numerous military magazines and websites. I wrote for PCS Grades for a while, and I've published several books on my own for the military community, including a deployment guide for spouses that are going through a deployment. And I've really been focused on deployment support for a few years now. I've been working with PCS Grades for the past year as the content editor, so it's just been such a delight sharing these resources, helping people through the PCS process. And that's part of the reason that there's a big section in my book about PCSing as well. So I'm really looking forward to I am excited, and I am looking forward to discussing all of that with you today.
Awesome. Of course. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have you on this side of the house. And of course, we're sporting our PCS Grades gear because, that's how we roll. That's where we get our brownie points from our boss, but we are just usually that awesome. I just wanted to go ahead and throw out some shout outs that we got here today. Jenna, shout out Jenna.
Yay. Hi.
Yay, two of my favorite people. Shout out Sally. So excited for this. Oh, hey, Paulette.
Hey.
Good to see you. Kayleen, we just met up with Kayleen over the military Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year Town Hall, and we got to hang out with her a little bit. And so welcome, Kayleen. Oh my goodness, I'm super, super excited. Wow, we have yay, Melanie Smalls. Girl, shout out. Y'all are Soy Cruz in the house today and are on fire. Okay, well, let's get down to business because we just have to talk all things open wing. All right. So as not just a seasoned spouse, but like the seasoned spouse, most literally, because that's your jam, you're kind of in a position to provide some really great guidance to other military spouses. And I'm specifically thinking of my own kid here because she's not going to listen to mom. Let's just be real, people.
Right.
Are there any military spouses who've specifically provided you guidance or stories over the years that might have shaped who you are, maybe as an author, as a mil spouse?
Yeah, there are specific people, but I think part of my passion and my heart for writing, especially to this community, comes from the fact that I didn't have support. I dated my Marine for a ridiculously long time, for 7 years. Long distance, a lot of deployments. He was in 29 Palms. It was a whole thing. And so during that time, I wasn't married. I didn't live anywhere near a base. I had zero connection to the military community. And this was kind of before social media existed. So there weren't places that I could just plug in and meet other people online. And I think it's a result of those years trying to kind of stumble along on my own, just figuring things out by myself, finding that inner strength, that I was so passionate about welcoming new spouses and significant others, about supporting them and having letters that they could read in those moments when they didn't have anyone else to turn to. But the flip side of that question is that, yes, once I got married and was part of the community and lived on base or near a base at least, definitely there were some inspiring people that helped me through his early deployments, that helped me through having babies alone. People have just pitched in and done so many kind deeds. And I've had some very strong examples of leadership and some wonderful spouses in my life. So I am grateful for them.
So my first suggestion is going to be, and I just got to throw this out there because it's something that I do every now and again. I'm really all about, knowing and remembering and honoring your roots. And, since we pick up our roots and move them all over the time, we've got them all over the place. We're like seeds everywhere. So I always, every now and again, when I think of something that really just pushed me forward, I shout them out. So if you get a chance when you share this, man, start plugging their names in this comment section. Give them the shout out, man, because I get surprised every now and again. And it's just, it hits you in the feels. You're like, okay, I did it. I helped somebody. I didn't even know it.
Well, I'm happy to say that some of them have been shouted out in the acknowledgments section in the back of the book. So I don't think I used too many particular names, but I did mention certain groups and certain duty stations, and I will be happy to let them know who they are that really inspired me along the way.
I bet they'll do. I bet they'll read it and be like, oh, that is so me. Okay, so let's talk about what's the overall theme of this book.
Basically, the open when letters, I think we're all kind of familiar with that concept of sending open when letters to the service member, you know, stuffing them in a care package or putting it into their sea bag before they leave for a deployment. And it's the idea of having a letter that is written for a very particular moment in time when maybe you can't connect with that person, but it's open when it's your birthday, or open when it's Christmas, or open when you're mad at me, you know, just when they need to hear the right message at the right time and can't necessarily pick up the phone or text you and get the message from their loved one. And after years of going through deployments and watching spouses do these beautiful open when letters to their service member, I started thinking, you know, who's writing open when letters for the spouses? Like, when do we get a chance to open up a letter that we need it the most? And when do we get to read an encouraging message and hear something inspirational from our community? And I think that sometimes the military spouse community is not great at encouraging each other when people are venting and saying, you know, oh, I'm really struggling with this move. I've had such a bad experience with my moving company, blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, oh, you know what, that sounds really hard. How can I help you through that? Sometimes our response is, you think that's bad, let me tell you my horror story. And we just pile it on. And that leaves someone feeling like, oh, my experience isn't valuable. It's not meaningful. I'm not allowed to be upset and frustrated with this. And so the message of the book is really just validation that there are so many challenges in military life. Some of them are big, some of them are small, but all of them are challenges, and you're allowed to feel frustrated and annoyed and challenged. But also, the other side of that is that no one is going through this life alone. And so I want people to feel encouraged and inspired, and to know that no matter what you're facing, you're probably not the first military spouse who's ever faced it. Someone has gone through it before, not necessarily me, but someone out there has already dealt with it and figured it out and can kind of hold your hand and help you through it. So these are letters for spouses to open when they need them most.
That is perfect. That is absolutely, I mean, and I think to a degree, I think you're right. You know, a lot of times we get stuck in that, oh, how do I put this without swearing? We'll call it complaint mode. Y'all know what I'm saying. You're hearing my brain, right? No, we do. I do. I mean, I can, but what happens is when I get upset or when I see somebody else, I just have this insane need to do. So if something, that's why I work for PCS grades. Okay, PCSing can just, it's 3-letter acronym, but it is a 4-letter word often. But it doesn't have to be. So my goal is to help them with their PCS, maybe reframe it to party coming soon or personal change of story. You know what I mean? And so that reframe is necessary. And maybe this will be kind of like a gut check to be like, okay, you're not alone. You've got this. And we're going to help you move forward. Your people will help you move forward, your tribe.
Yes.
So the book's broken up into 5 sections, and there are lots of facets of military life. Like you like 50. This is particularly is 5 sections. So what are those sections, and how did you come to select these 5?
Well, we wanted it to cover the entire military journey from basic training all the way to retirement, which is a huge undertaking in and of itself. But the idea was that this is not just a, military 101, how do I read an LES pay stub kind of book, but this is something that you can really keep with you, keep on your bookshelf, and share with a friend at any point in the journey. So yeah, the first section is about those who are new to military life. It's got all of your introductory information, like when you're dating long distance or when you're planning a military wedding and when you spend your first night alone. Those are all situations that you're going to face at some point in those early stages. And then we called our table of contents section Mail Call because we were going with the letters theme. And so the other sections have a more post office oriented theme. The second one is called Handle with Care. And that just covers all of the ups and downs of military life. This is something that I think people can relate to again and again. There's situations that you might face multiple times, like open when you're angry at the military, open when you have trouble sleeping, or open when the military throws you curveballs, because those are things that happen. And the third section, which is all about PCSing, that's called Changes of Address. It talks about overseas moves. It talks about ditty moves. It talks about moving with kids and changing schools and changing jobs and all of those things that you are so familiar with at PCS grades. The fourth section is about deployments, and it's called Sealed with a Kiss. That's probably my favorite section because I do have such a heart for deployment support, and I've been writing about it for years, but really just covering every stage from when you first learn about deployment orders, you have to tell the kids, when you miss a phone call during deployment, and when it's almost time for homecoming, just going through every stage, things breaking, people getting sick, everything going wrong, and all the support that you need. And that final section is called Seasoned Spouses. And that is for those of us who have been around the block a time or two and have done a few things in military life. I don't think of it as an age or a number of moves or deployments necessarily, but really just once you've had some experiences, you are seasoned and you have some experience that's worth sharing with others. And that is for those who are nearing retirement or leaving military service. And there's letters like open when you're tired of military life, open when your child leaves the military nest, and open when you're searching for your identity. So all of those, I hope, will meet people where they are along that military journey and really cover every stage so that you could read it the whole way through, or you could keep it and just refer to it when the time feels right, when you really need that specific message.
I would totally advocate on the skipping around if necessary. Like, obviously read it all the way straight through and then you'll know where to go, because it's entirely, look, the PCS identity crisis is real, people. And so if there's anything in that finding your identity side that you can apply throughout, man, take it and run, skip around if you can, you know what I mean? That's awesome.
Thank you.
So let's go back to that section about PCSing. So you dedicated a chapter of this book to that topic. So why is that particular topic important?
I think just because it is so stressful. Most military families will PCS at some point. It's not guaranteed, so if you are able to entirely skip that section of the book, all power to you. But most people are going to stumble across it at some point, and probably several points in their service member's career. And I think what we've all learned is that PCSing is different every time you do it. So even when you figure it out, maybe the first time, maybe there's only one or two letters that apply to you your first time, but then the next time you're going through it, you've got kids, or you're dealing with a change of a job or new schools, or maybe you had really good friends at one duty station that suddenly it's going to be much harder to leave. And so it's always kind of a different situation, a different adjustment. Obviously, we've been through it several times. We've lived in different time zones, I think 4 different time zones now. And I don't know, there's so much that can be said about PCSing. So I don't know how much you want me to get into it, but it is a very challenging time. And I think it's something that people are always looking for more strategies, more resources, more tips. And there is some of that in here. We've got tips on how to plan for a ditty move and how to make your move go more smoothly, and strategies for cleaning out your closets. But I think on a more emotional level, people are just looking for someone who says, you know what, I get it. This is hard. And it's tough to have that conversation with your kids. And it's tough to leave a job and a support system that you've loved. But here's how you can do that. Here's how you can step forward. Try this, try that. Here's a few strategies, and maybe one of them will work for you.
No, that's totally, and that totally makes sense. And, I'm very curious. I mean, my background is social psychology, so I'm always interested in the thought process right at being notified of something. Somebody comes home with flowers as a PCS or deployment. Tell me, just give it to me straight, man. You know what I mean? Preach. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Some people, my spouse handed me a beer and I said, where are we going? You know what I mean? So I'm curious, to our audience, what is a one word emotion? Drop it in the comments section. What is one way? What is the first feeling that came to mind the moment that you learned you got orders to PCS? Like, I am very, very interested in that. And just remember, your answers help guide our content to make things better, because this is our lives, people. Like, this is happening. So I'm curious, one word answer. What was your first emotional response in your brain when you were notified? And while you guys are typing that and giving us that info, because I know there's a whole lot of people. And yes, Paulette, when you were talking about the PCS and the different spectrums, yeah, the whole PPM thing, yeah, that's a thing. Preach. And then, okay, so here's Paulette's answer. First reaction, first response. I want to find my next home. Is that your first response? Because I'm gonna tell you, like, I want to find my next home. Like, I want to find my next home. Hopefully, I get to stay here. Like, that's my plan.
That'd
That's
be
MJ's
easier.
plan. Yeah. And Vanessa, shout out. I'm sure that there are a lot of people, everybody like her, because everybody feels anxiety at some point. But yeah, anxiety, that's the thing. Like, oh my gosh. And the level, correct me if I'm wrong, Vanessa, shout out. The level of anxiety, high or low, is dependent upon how much time between the time you're notified and the time you have to hit the road. And Caitlin, shout out Caitlin. Will I get a better job using my degrees? Like, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Like, I feel you. I moved to DC from South Carolina, the DC Nova area, and I thought, oh, I'm going to the land of opportunity, and I've got a degree, and I can do this, that, and the other. With that came a lot more competition, though. Lot more competition than I wasn't anticipating. So, like, that was one of the first things that ran through my mind as well. These are some really, really good answers. Okay, so also, in the book, there's a section called "Open When You Say Goodbye to a Home That You Love," because yeah, sometimes we are in a 500 square foot shoebox, but sometimes that's your first place and you have an emotional tie to it. You know what I mean? You feel some type of way. So that section, "Open When You Say Goodbye to a Home You Love." Lizanne here is going to go ahead and read that section for you. And this is especially helpful to hear if A, you are going to be experiencing a PCS and you love your home, or B, if you know somebody who is, point them to this minute mark. But Lizanne, why don't you go ahead and read that to our audience?
I would love to. Yeah, this is from that PCSing section. Each of the letters you can see, they're short. So each one is only about 2 pages. This one begins up here and it just goes over to the next page before it starts another one. And it's just for that first home, whether it's the home that you grew up in and you're leaving, whether it's the first home that you've lived in with your service member, whether it's the home where you became a family and brought children home. I think we all have a home at some point that we love and it's hard to leave. So I wanted a letter that people could open when they're facing that scenario and find some encouragement in that difficult moment. So this is the first ever live reading of "Open When You Say Goodbye to a Home You Love." Dear moving friend, it's almost time to stand at the threshold of this house with tears in your eyes and take one last look behind you before you walk out the door. It won't be easy. You have great things ahead of you, but good memories are hard to leave behind. Even with a new, exciting future ahead, the moment is still bittersweet. Saying goodbye to a home you've loved is hard. Whether you're leaving your childhood home, the first home you lived in with your military loved one, or the place where you brought home a newborn, or 2. You may feel you're leaving so many memories behind. Lonely rooms during deployment, the floors you walked with a fussy baby, the kitchen where you made holiday meals together. You filled your home with friends, good food, used furniture, and laughter. You made this house a home. But when your belongings are packed up and moved out, it's just a house again, an empty shell with echoes of memories the next resident won't even hear. It's okay to cry when you leave part of your home behind. Part of your life behind. At many duty stations, you will leave a house with no expectation of returning. Even if you're leaving a house you own, one you will keep and rent to others, there's no guarantee you'll be stationed there again. And if you do return in a few years after more children or other life changes, this house might no longer be a good fit for you. Closing and locking the door that final time is truly the end of a certain chapter in your life. No matter what happens, you can't relive those days again. Here's what you can do. Treasure the memories, and walk forward. Before you go, before the movers pack up your belongings, make sure to treasure some memories. Save something physical like photos, videos, or souvenirs so you and perhaps your children can enjoy those memories for years to come. Savor the memory of this chapter and prepare to close the door. When you know you've captured the joy of a place, it makes it easier to leave. The memories are about the people, not the place. A house is only a house, but your spouse is home. And no matter where you move, you will find home with the one you love. Everything hard can be done one step at a time, including stepping out the door for the last time. Clean out closets, pack up the curtains. Once your belongings are packed, it's easier to see that even when you leave this house behind, you will take the memories with you. Keep telling the story of that tiny kitchen or the creaking door or the time you painted the wall the wrong color. And then step into your next empty house and realize its potential. The next house is not full of memories yet, but it soon will be. First, fill it with the pictures and souvenirs and memories of your old house. And then watch as you start to have new adventures and new stories to tell in this one. One day, the empty house you just moved into will feel like a home too.
That is pretty on point. And I just kind of want to give you some of the feedback that we've been receiving while you were reading. Sandra, shout out. Such a tender and empathetic letter. I love this concept. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Sandra.
Vanessa, that's powerful to hear. And I think that's important. That's why Lizanne read it out loud, because sometimes you just have to feel the words, and she made us feel them. And then, you know, we've got Angela. Shout out, Angela.
Hey.
Beautiful tribute to our life in a certain home. It is so hard to leave each home for the last time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And of course, we've got Jenna here. Your spouse is your home. Mm-hmm. Boom. Pretty much mic drop on that. We've got Teresa here. Shout out, Teresa. We've lived in the same place for 15 years and about to do our first PCS. And this is so comforting. Like, okay, shut your face, Teresa, because now my eyes are about to leak a little bit. I think I might have need an oil change up in here. So yeah, that's the thing. So that's really important. And now that, you guys, to our audience, that was just a snippet of what you will read throughout this book. These are letters to you. And these are the things that we need to hear when we are in those situations. Like, how amazing is that? Shout out. I'm collecting myself now. It's fine now. Everything's fine.
Thank you. I know it's so good to hear that people can find comfort and relate. I tried so hard to put myself in that situation, you know, physically and emotionally, and meet people where they are. And so each of these letters, it relates to a very specific and a very powerful moment of military life that sometimes it's one that we've been through multiple times and we never quite paused to process and think about it. But I think it's really meaningful to just take a moment to realize, whether you're going through it the first time or the 5th time or the 10th time, that we go through some tough situations as military spouses, but there can also be beauty and strength found in those challenges. And that's what I wanted to bring out.
And you did in spades. Okay, so I'm going to skip around here a little bit. So I kind of wanted to just kind of still stay in the same kind of theme about this particular book. How is this book kind of different maybe than other books on the mil-spouse, covering mil-spouse or mil-fam issues on the market?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, the letters theme is unique. As you can see, I wanted to pack a lot of emotion and a lot of friendship into this book. So this is not your typical, how-to book that you hand out to the new spouses and tell them, here's how to sign up for TRICARE. I don't have that type of information in here, and I'm glad that those resources exist, but it's just not the type of book that I wanted to write. I think they are out there, and there's places that you can find that kind of thing. But something like this, finding something that can really stay with you through the entire military journey, that's not something that you're just going to get as a new spouse and then throw away by the time you're going to your next duty station. I wanted it to be something that would really grow with you, connect with you in different ways at different times as you go through those various chapters of military life. I think it's comforting to know that there's someone there at each point of the journey, and you never really graduate from needing support. That's why it was so important to me to have a seasoned spouse section at the end, because they get overlooked and neglected a lot. People think that, oh, you've done this before, so PCSing must be easy for you by now. And truly, we do learn and we do figure things out as we go. But I don't think it ever becomes like, sure, no problem, this will be easy. And there's a lot of emotional weight and a lot of just things that people carry and need to deal with over the years. So I thought it was important to write a book where it was military spouses really speaking to each other and being honest with each other and encouraging each other.
No, for sure. And I mean, like, this is yet another outlet to do so. It's interesting when you're kind of talking about, like, the way something goes and the emotional things that go along with it. When I made my first PCS as a early 20 something spouse, I had no expectations. I was just kind of along for the ride, man. I know nothing and I had no expectations. So really wasn't hard, really nothing, I couldn't consider it bad because I didn't know what to expect. And then of course, over time you learn what you should expect. Mm-hmm. Whether that's based on previous experience or learning more about the process. And it's easy to see how a person's mind can go to it's getting continually worse because their expectations know what it's supposed to be. But at the same time, you can help manage those expectations for other people that are coming up the chain that we're raising up, right? Because we're raising up our people. Like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's what I see this as too, is a way of kind of paying it forward. I mentioned in the beginning, there's people that were a great example to me earlier in our marriage, and I would love to be that example and that encouragement to other spouses. And I can't meet every single one of them and give every one of them a hug. And so to hear that my book has been described as like a warm virtual hug, it just made me so happy, because I would love to give a hug to every military spouse and just be there to encourage them in those difficult moments.
Vanessa says, I feel like this book transcends generations and that everyone will find comfort in the information's relevant. So shout out.
That
Vanessa.
Is so beautiful. Thank you.
And I mean, honestly, definitely it could span like it's applicable. It could be applicable. So, is this a book just for military spouses, or do you think that other people might enjoy it and be able to relate?
No, I did have to put military spouses on the cover so that people understood that it's written to them. I could not specifically write to the service member because that's not my background and my experience. But just because it says military spouses, it doesn't mean that the letters can't speak to other people. So absolutely, I think significant others are a huge group that would totally benefit and should be included. But I've also heard really good feedback from military parents who, whether or not they were a military spouse, they've got kids who are in the military now or are marrying someone in the military. You can relate to that situation. And things are different on the parenting side, but I'm hearing that these letters really help people to communicate. Even someone who grew up as a military kid is going to experience life differently as a spouse. So connecting those generations, absolutely, I think is important. And I've even had some good feedback from my civilian friends that didn't grow up military and are not married to the military, but they know me. And they said that reading this just gave them so much insight and appreciation to what I was going through in my military life. And they realized it gave them so much more background to be able to talk about things and understand where military families are coming from. So I hope it's a book that really kind of pulls the curtain back on our community and lets us know that A, it's okay to talk about these things with each other, but B, it's okay to share them with the civilian world. And, we're not all super strong and figuring everything out and just fine, but we do need encouragement and strength and support sometimes. And that can come from a civilian just as well as it can come from a fellow military family.
And I really like that, any way to narrow the military civilian divide is great. Any way to understand that way of life. Because the one thing that we all have in common, write it down, people. The one thing, regardless of branch or time and service or whatever, the one thing we all have in common is that we will all be leaving the military life at some point. And if this is yet a way to kind of help bridge that divide, that'd be fantastic. Just a side note, everyone, I want you to know that Lizanne actually gave me an autographed copy of her book for my daughter, okay, who is going through her first deployment. And when I handed it to her, Lizanne, I haven't told Lizanne this yet. When I handed it to her, I said, "You're very lucky. This is a great book. By the way, you're like getting a first edition. You're like getting this before anybody else has the opportunity to get it, okay?" And she's like, "A first edition. I could sell this for $50,000. I'm not even kidding you. I love my kid. I'm like, way to support a mill spouse. That's how we do it, sister. That's how we do it. Yep. So, and granted, she's 22 and probably doesn't really understand the whole thing about the book club, but the fact that she's going, or the book market, but the fact that she's going to keep it in pristine condition just in case, that just might happen because she's got a first edition autographed copy. Write it down.
I hope that is worth a tremendous amount someday. I would love to see that.
Remember, things are worth much regardless of monetary value. That's a fact. So speaking of which, how might our people get a copy?
Yeah, well, if you aren't lucky enough to win one today, then you can get it anywhere online where books are sold. So that does include our, I'm allowed to say Amazon, right?
Yes, you can say all of the things because this is part of our life.
It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's on Books A Million, it's probably in other sites that I don't even know. But yeah, you can order it anywhere that books are sold. But you can also get it directly through my publisher, which is Military Family Books. And when you buy it through them, it's the same cost to you, but they do give a portion of the sales back to supporting military families. So definitely encourage you to go that route. Also, if there are spouse clubs, unit groups, if there's a chaplain that wants to order them for the base, they have bulk discounts through the publisher as well.
Word. And we did drop a link, the Amazon link, right into the comment section. Our lovely Teresa on the back end went ahead and dropped it like it was hot. And
thank you.
Caitlin, shout out. We got you covered. We got you covered, sister.
And I can add one for the publisher if we don't have that up as well.
Absolutely. And so, it's all about paying it forward in our network. We're all servant leaders at heart in one way, shape, or form. So our audience is so supportive. How can we all review your book once we've actually read it?
I do appreciate that. If you know anything about writing and authors, you know that book reviews are pretty important. That's how your book is marketed online. It's how websites choose whether or not to recommend your book to someone who's shopping for something else. And I would certainly appreciate a review on Amazon. That does matter to me. But you can also do it on sites like Goodreads. So on Goodreads, you don't even have to actually purchase a book. You don't buy through their site, but that whole site is about, recommending books and reviewing them and seeing what your friends are reading and getting everyone's opinions. So I would love a review on there. If you are an ebook reader, then you can review it on BookBub as well. So any of those places, I have author profiles. You can follow me. Some of them you can ask me questions and engage, and I would absolutely love that.
And just for the record, people, her book just launched officially yesterday, which is why, we jumped on the train while we could to get her up here to not just get the momentum going, because it was taken off before anybody was even allowed to buy it. Okay. But I want to kind of put this up there. And Angela, I encourage you to leave this review on Amazon as well. She said, "My favorite part of this book is that you can turn to the specific letter to speak to where you're at and what you're struggling with that day. That's a great idea. Thank you, Lizanne."
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think we all have busy lives. I mean, some people don't want to sit down and read a 200-page book. And even if you did early in your military career, you're going to forget a lot of it. And it may not come to mind when it's relevant 10 years later and you're going through that overseas move. So I think people have time to read, a short 2-page letter to just get that little burst of strength and energy and inspiration of like, yes, I can do this. And then go about your day and feel encouraged and feel inspired and hopefully share that joy and encouragement with others.
No, and I think that's fantastic. And by the way, everyone, you know, we're giving away up to 3 copies today. And even if, like, let's say you already have it, or you already accidentally bought it because she's so cool, and you're one of those early adopters, you know somebody who needs this in their life. And you can also use it as a pay it forward thing. Like, hey, I'm giving this to you because I may no longer need it at this moment, and I know you need it more. And when you no longer need it, or you want to pass it on, you pass it on. Like that's also, so if you win today and you already have a book, you know somebody who you can pass it on to. Okay, so while Teresa is pulling up the names, I'm going to go ahead and, so since I skipped around, there was one question I did want to ask, because you've moved Oconus before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where was that you moved?
That was to Rota, Spain. And I wrote a whole other book about that process, and that's this one right here.
Because that's how cray it can be.
It's so bad that after we went through our move and I started talking to other people about it, I was like, no, this isn't acceptable that everyone is having the same issues and the same struggles, and people are finding everything out after the fact. There should be a book about how to move here, and it didn't exist, so I wrote it.
See, and that right there, I hope if you take nothing else away, people, our stories, they can make waves, like legit. And she's like, nobody wrote the book. Guess what? I'm writing it. Yes, fill those gaps. I'm all about filling the gaps. So tell me, why was that? Why was it moving overseas so stressful? Like, what made that move different from other PCS moves you've made?
For that one in particular, so it was our first move out of the country. Obviously, that comes with its own level of paperwork and passports and stress. You know, we were selling a home and selling a house or a vehicle, that kind of thing. But we also had 3 small children. They were ages like 3, 2, and 1 somehow. And it was, I wondered if any other military family was crazy enough to move overseas with young children like that. It turns out they are. We definitely weren't the only ones, but it was super intimidating and exhausting. And then to make things worse, we flew to Spain on September 11th, 2012 or 2011, the year of the Benghazi attacks.
Oh my goodness.
So we landed in Spain. And our sponsor, luckily, had not deployed overnight. And he met us at the airport and he said, so did you hear the news? Do you know what's going on? And we were like, no, we've been in a transatlantic flight all night. And he said, okay, well, half the unit just left because, you know, then fill in the blank and explain the entire Benghazi situation. And so for the first few weeks that we lived overseas, usually there's a process of getting the families oriented. You go through like this orientation thing. They help you find housing. They help you get your kids enrolled in school. But because of that, the Marine Corps unit that my husband was reporting to was in like crazy crisis mode. He had to do these long shifts. He wasn't allowed to leave the base. He wasn't allowed to come home half the time. He was like sleeping in his office. And after we'd been there 2 or 3 weeks, I said, you know what? I'm going to the orientation by myself, because if your unit won't let you go, I'm going to go and figure it out. I had to drive around the base in a stick shift vehicle that I had just learned how to drive, with 3 kids in car seats in the seat directly behind me. And I had to check in. I had to do his service member check-in sheet for him. Like go to the medical, go to TRICARE, go to the library, like all those things. I had to get those signatures because he wasn't authorized to like do anything besides work in his office. So that's not how overseas moves are supposed to go, but that was my trial by fire. And I did absolutely write about that in the Open When book and share some of the details of that story.
Oh my gosh. And thank God, because I mean, of course, Murphy, it was almost as if Murphy had planned it and in that exact order, in that exact way. But silver lining, you wrote a book.
Yep. Now there's a book.
That just happened. And I need to throw this up there too from Angela. Shout out Angela. And this is, I think she means this like webinar wide, because if I'm not mistaken, Angela is literally in the middle of a PCS right now. I love how much I have learned through you all and has helped me feel more confident with the move that we are in the middle of. And so like literally that is if we help one person do one thing that makes it easier to PCS, especially this year, y'all, then we feel good about what we've done.
And I think that's what PCS Grades is all about, is trying to give people those resources and confidence so that you can get through the move. There's so many questions and there's so much uncertainty. I've learned a lot working here. MJ has taught me so many things. So I love that we have these webinars and that we're able to share those resources with our community. And it really means something to me that we're able to do that.
Absolutely. Okay, y'all, I've got 3 books to give away. Count them 3. So stand by, because we're going to pull up the wheel of names. And yes, you very well might see my brain, the inside of that sucker, for just a moment. And I apologize because I'm ADD, and it's okay. It's my superpower. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen for real. It's just a process you have to go through because security. All right. You see that? Do we see it? Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. For book number 1, drum roll, please.
Hey,
Kayleen.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Congrats. We'll be in touch with you to get your address so that we can go ahead and ship you off a copy of Open When. All right. And so that was winner number 1. We're on to winner number 2. Winner number 2, drum roll, please.
All right, Angela. Congrats.
And again, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Angela does have one.
I think she won one at MSOI.
Yes, she did. And so I also know that Angela knows a lot of somebodies who need this in their lives. So congrats, Angela, and let us know who you end up passing that on to. We will get with you after the webinar. And then last but certainly not least, winner number 3. Caitlin. Yes, Caitlin. I can hear you hollering and woo, you get a book, and you get a book, and you get a book. Awesome. Congratulations, Caitlin. We'll be in touch. So just for the record, we did drop the link to the actual publisher's link, because I know, Caitlin, I think you were asking about that as well. We just got a couple of shout outs here really quick. Tiffany Motley, how you doing? Make sure you watch the replay, especially around the time that Lizanne starts reading that specific excerpt. You're going to want to hear that. Angela, yes, Angela. Happy to pass this along to a fellow spouse. Angela. It is a treasure, yes. So we'll be in touch with all of you to get that out there. And Caitlin, shout out, excited to share within our new unit.
Yay. Oh, and I should share one other quick piece of news. We are going to have book clubs coming up soon. So there will be, this is a perfect book to share with your unit. So thank you, Caitlin, for bringing that up. Share with your unit group, with your base spouse group, with local spouses. There will be a virtual book club coming in the fall. And I'm also encouraging spouses to think about starting in-person local clubs. And I'm happy to put in an appearance and do a little Zoom consultation with your group. So you can contact me to set all of that up.
Word. And no, that's super exciting. I can't even, I cannot even how proud I am of this girl right here. I'm just saying.
I know you love your book clubs, so.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm a book club fiend, y'all. How do you like that? That literally, the book club thing is the thing that actually got my start in the mill spouse world. Not even gonna lie. That's a thing. But Lizanne, thank you so much. And of course, we'll probably have you on again. Everyone go look at her book. Whenever you can. I just unplugged myself. One moment. And next week we have We have Jess Manfrey from the Inspire Up Foundation talking about the You're Worth It conference. And we are giving away 10 free tickets to that conference. And one lucky winner will receive a free hotel stay for that conference. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's happening.
That is awesome.
If you are interested in this gig because you want to be, come join us next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Jess Manfrey of Inspire Up. But until next time, this too
shall PCS.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody.